So we didn't post it on YouTube because we didn't finish it. See if we finish this one today. The greatest Star Citizen flight model, understanding disengage from Avenger 1. I was watching his reaction to the flight model changes yesterday on stream, and he was there. And that was the part that I was unclear about. Is it sounds like it's going to be very difficult to run away, or overpowered to run away, or just a part they sort of briefly touched on but didn't dive too much into. So let's see what he thinks is good, bad, or ugly. But it's 45 minutes long. Yeah, I wish it was more concise, but maybe it can't be. So let's see.
Okay. Here's something that people need to understand about the current. So I'm going to explain the current system, like the current system that we have.
I'll have to move myself.
We have our current speed system. I don't know why that's so thick, bruh. Which is, let's say, 1200, right? 1200-ish, okay? Now, a lot of times combat happens within, sometimes the combat might happen up here in that speed zone. Sometimes the combat might happen here, and sometimes the combat might happen here, right? Now, when I say combat happening, I mean within a relative delta of 200, right? So what I mean by that is
this meters per second or
fighting,
distance?
Okay. So they're circling each other this way, circling each other this way. They might be circling each other like this, right? Where they're both kind of moving this overall direction, but they're circling as they continue to fight.
Yeah,
right?
Understood.
That's what we kind of currently with the speeds right now. Now with the new system, what we're doing is they're separating this so that fights happen basically like this. Okay? Anything in here is hard capped like that, and anything from this point on is all space quantum maneuvering or whatever, quantum mode, right? Standard quantum mode, and this is standard control mode, right? Or SCM. Now the play in this zone is going to be anywhere from from what they've told us, right? Anywhere from 0 to
video volume a little low,
right? And that is subject to change, right? That might go up to,
how about now,
500 maybe at one point. I don't know, right? Thank you for the sub, brother, or the follow. Welcome to Imperial Navy, right? But that's subject to change relative to what's going on with what Yogi's team is doing and what they want ships to feel like and all that stuff, right? Now, the problem is, if you do racing, right, and low flying and that kind of stuff, sometimes it's nice to be at this point in the spectrum, like up at the higher end for the kind of low flying kind of stuff, right? And you get that real sense of speed. You get that real.
That's not true though, because in my experience, low flyers are flying 300 to 400 meters per second, and you get the speed by being low to the ground. That's my understanding of it, but okay. He's not a low flyer,
kind of feeling, which I'm all for, right? I'm all for that, right? So, how does the differences between these two systems affect disengaging, right? Now, number one, we talked about an option which I agree with, is that I should not be forced, okay, into this right here, where it's like, oh, you want to survive? You're forced to bring an escort. Right?
Yeah, no.
I understand that is not a viable option for some people, and that's not a viable option all the time, right? Now, if you're going...
Why no? Because it's stupid. You always needing to bring an escort with you in scenarios where you're not always going to be attacked is a situation where your escort is basically doing nothing. And the AI escorts that you could bring are never going to be good enough, and so on and so forth against the PvP player. There needs to be clear engagement rules and disengagement rules, like designed into the game for a 1v1 scenario, and then built upon as you add more and more players to the situation.
into a specifically dangerous area that you know there's going to be a lot of people there to engage. I know I probably spelled it wrong, but who cares? It's the morning. Jesus Christ. Escort. All right. Escort. Let's just...
I mean, that was sort of an L.
Number 2 will be a scout. Okay. So option number 2 is a scout. And 3 will be... I guess you could call it... whatever, right? You're going to guess or take a risk. You're just going to hope that nobody's there, right? That's what we currently have right now, okay? The argument is, with this new system, I won't be able to disengage, or in this case, like, how do I disengage? First of all, with the current system we have, you can't disengage. Like, you can't.
No.
Okay? You can tricord, you can get away, but if you're in any kind of hauling ship, let's take a freelancer, for example, right? Let's take a freelancer. So a freelancer's trying to run away. You know, it's shaped like... Oh, God, here we go again. God damn it. It even looks like it.
I mean, it looks like a freelancer.
Tail mounts, and then here's the turret on the top here, and then it's weird, like, sideways.
It's not his fault in this scenario.
And then it's big turret guns on the side, right? Okay, that's your freelancer, right? It's a little better. I really wanted to make sure I didn't make it look like something else. Ripped. Here we have our freelancer, right? Now, here's the reality. All right, I'm going to draw that speed spectrum again, right? And we're topping out. Does anybody know off the top of their head what the top speed of a freelancer is? I can't remember. I think it's like 1,000.
It's not fast.
I don't know exactly what the actual speed is for the Lancer, right? Somebody's going to say, I have a size 9 freelancer in my pants. Okay, so let's say it's 1,000. Yeah, it's not 1,000, it's less. Okay, okay, well, 900 then, right?
Let them say it first.
Now,
then address the weirdo.
Is significantly faster.
Don't be the weirdo.
Okay, but it's all relative, right? So the Gladius is faster by, I don't know.
Don't be the somebody.
32, so roughly 332 meters per second closing distance. Okay? 332 meters closing distance at top speed. And that's not to mention accelerations, right? Because if you catch the freelancer at lower speed, the Gladius is going to be able to much more quickly engage this freelancer, right? So our closing distance is sitting at 300, which is significantly faster than what we would have with the new system, right? Now here's the new system, right? New system is as follows. Here we have our speed spectrum, right? But we're locked to our top speed, which will be, let's say, for the freelancer, we don't know this speed, but we're going to assume it's probably at 300, right? In space. I'm not talking atmosphere because that's a different tuning, right? Just in space for this.
Most ships will be around 300.
Our Gladius accelerational difference is something like, I'm going to draw the Gladius here. Actually, I'll just draw the arrow. It's a little easier, right? So here's our arrow, right? And what we're going to do is we're going to give our arrow, let's say, 390, okay? Now, the relative accelerational distance is going to be 90 meters per second, right? So is that faster or slower than 332 or whatever we had before?
I don't know, man. Right? I don't like
it's
math.
It's significantly slower. So the delta, which means the average accelerational distance to close onto a target, is going to be much smaller, which means the time it takes, and this is important, the time it takes for me to realize that there's a threat and start moving away from him is shorter, right? Or is much longer with this new system, right? So unless he's right on top of me right away, okay? Okay, so this is, I'm talking disengage theory here. So you might ask, well, why don't I just...
The thing about it is disengage theory would not be in SCM mode. It would be in QCM mode.
Clamber into QC mode,
okay,
and off I go, right? Well, I think what will happen, and again, right, this is my assumption from...
Before he goes into this, my hope is that one of the qualities of industrial quantum drives is the ability to switch the modes more quickly. And Another example would be the freelancers' engines are much larger, so they would have maybe much more powerful forward thrust than something like a Gladius, but that's hard to say because it could be made of more weightier materials and things like that. There just needs to be some sort of gameplay mechanic for a non-combat player to disengage in a combat scenario.
The information I've gathered from streams and from people I've spoken to is if you were to imagine a combat bubble that would engulf, you know, the fighter, right? So the maximum targeting distance, let's say for a missile system, and again, this is completely up to balancing changes, right? But I'm talking the mechanical side of it here, right? So if you're at high speed, let's say you're at, I don't know, you're at the top of your 900 meters per second. You're at the top of your, I don't know, quantum mode, right? You're in travel mode. You're going real fast, right? You're going 900 meters per second, right? And you are outside of, let's say, again, right? Outside of whatever we're going to assume here, again, 5,000 meters, because that's what we currently have. 5,000 meters is our targeting zone, right? And we're in our arrow. We're kind of cruising around at 300, just kind of, you know, doing S turns, just doing our thing, right?
You have to spell
And
narrator
we see a
right.
freelancer pop up on radar. He's a few kilometers away because he's close enough to us. I target him. I launch a missile, okay? And the missile is able to track and target until it hits its target, right? Even though he's going 900 meters per second, the missile is going to be able to turn and chase, you know, let's say the missile chase is at, I don't know, 1,300 once it's at top speed, right? And as long as it's within, you know, let's say its maximum range is 15 kilometers, not 150, 15 kilometers, km, then the missile's going to hit, it's going to impact, it's going to do some damage, right? So that's option number one, right? So how do we disengage that? So like I was saying before in the video, we can either drop to SCM speeds, right? And then engage in a proper disengagement theory where we get away from that 5,000 meter cone, right? Or two, we use our turret, which I think would be really interesting. I mean, there's so many ways to disengage here. Like I want to get into all of them here because it's actually quite interesting, right?
Okay, let's do it
because
then.
If we assume for a second that this turret is optional and functional, right? If we're traveling this direction and we have a hostile arrow behind us and he's shooting missiles at us, right? And we tune those missiles properly, what's stopping us from using our guns to shoot those missiles down, right?
The fact that you're in QCM mode.
It basically becomes a game of deciding whether or not to risk going to QCM or rather run until the quantum drive is engaged. Right, so as far as I understand, you can turn on the quantum drive, right? So like if I'm in like let's say I'm in normal mode, right? Let's say my location is Crusader, right? So I'm trying to go to Crusader, right? And I'm running away from this arrow. I'm at 5 kilometers, okay? And I'm closing at let's say 100 meters per second.
That's very
Okay?
slow.
So if I'm closing at 100 meters per second, how long until I cross 5 kilometers, right? So if I'm moving 100 meters per second, okay, and I want to cross 5K, how long is that? It's 50 seconds, right? So I basically have 1 full minute, almost 1 full minute at 5 kilometers before this freelancer is within weapons range of this arrow.
Yeah.
Okay. We are not in quantum whatever mode, right? Because we've decided that we're within 5,000 meters, so we are dropping to standard control mode rather than quantum control mode, right? We're not in quantum control mode. What we're doing is we're explaining how to disengage in standard control mode. Because the reality is that...
But I'd never... Okay, so the reason he made this video is because I didn't understand how you would disengage. I never asked about how to disengage in SCM. I talked about just disengaging. So I'm hoping he goes through the rest of them. Let me tell you something. If I'm 5 kilometers away from an arrow, I am going to do what? I am going to QCM mode, and I am going to quantum boost the fuck away from it. I am not going to drop down to a speed in which the arrow can engage in QCM mode and have a much faster closing speed.
Once you get within a certain range, like once you get within 5,000 meters,
so I'm confused by this one personally.
Distance is gonna set for like the danger zone, basically, right? If they set it at 5K, it's 5K. If they set it to 10K, if they set it to 12K, I don't know what the distance. That's a tuning thing, right? But mechanically, once you get close enough to, let's say, a fighter, if you're still in standard quantum mode, you are at risk of receiving effective fire, right? And effective fire in the sense of if you have missiles and you fire it at him, it's likely that they're going to hit. So in order for you to deal with those missiles, you're going to have to drop to standard control mode and engage.
Yeah, and he's playing under the assumption of that. Here's the thing with a lot of these combat guys, they do talk to Yogi. They do talk to the other combat teams, and there might be information trickling out. This could be a truth. It could be something that he just is assuming in his head. Did they say that missiles would be faster or slower than QCM mode? As far as I'm aware, because I don't believe they have given us any clear indicator at the speed of missiles versus the speed of a ship in QCM mode. They did in Burke's chat. Okay, what did they say exactly then? Because that kind of takes this whole scenario out of the equation. They said they will be rebalanced. They didn't say whether they would be faster or slower. So, yeah. They said they would be rebalanced is not a clear answer, so that's a totally different thing. So we'll have to see. I would imagine that we would be able to disengage from missiles in QCM mode. Avenger seems to feel that that's not the case. So I think this is just something we'll have to see. But
right now, there's two problems here. One, people argue, well, this forces me to fight, because previously in the system that we were using before is we wouldn't need to fight because I could just stay at super high speed and I would just be able to run. But that's just simply not the case. In the current system we have, you cannot run. You cannot run. If you're in a freelancer, a starfarer, a caterpillar, a prospector, anything that's mining or non-combat related cannot run away from combat ships right now. You can't run away from light fighters. You can't run away from medium fighters. You surely can't run away from heavy fighters. So this argument, I feel like I find quite silly, because a lot of people were giving me flack for this in the previous video. Is like, well, Avenger, then you're forcing me to fight. It's like, well, they're forcing you to fight right now without quantum mode. Like, just what we have in 317.1 or /318. You can't run away. If I bring a Mantis, you can't get away from 20 kilometers.
Of course, if you bring a Mantis, you can't. But in the other scenarios, if the ship pops up on the radar early enough, let's say you're mining on a, I don't know, Lyria is a good example because it has fairly light atmosphere. If you're mining on Lyria and a Gladius pops up on your radar, you can flip 90 degrees, shoot up, QT to a OM marker that you should already have ready and tracked to go, and be out of there before they can engage you. Even if they pop up at like, what, 25K? That's plenty of time to hit 3,000 meters. So I'm confused by his thought process here, but again, I'm willing to kind of listen still.
Like, you can't get outside of 20K and run away, right? So I'm trying to explain to you how you would get away in the new system and kind of put some people's fears a little bit at rest, because I think there's a fundamental misunderstanding of how disengaging it happens in what we have now versus what might be something that we can do in the new system, right?
I think he has a fundamental misunderstanding as well, because in the current experience, all you need to do is be able to. You cannot run, like he's right, you absolutely cannot run from a mantis. But in any other scenario where there's not a quantum interdictor, he's still saying that you can't run when you definitely can. So that's the part that I'm kind of talking about.
Okay, so we agree that if we're in standard control mode,
as long as you know you're supposed to
our
run,
top speed
like
might
you know
be
someone's
slower,
there.
But again, if this arrow if this arrow is going to be smart and thinks, I'm going to get closer, I'm going to reduce that distance by switching into quantum mode and accelerate up to my target here. I mean, that's just silly, because all you'd have to do is if you notice that change, just shoot a missile at him. Boom, you've dealt with your attacker, right? So the person pursuing you is not going to switch into quantum mode either, because that's going to put him at risk, right?
Thank you, Perry Helion.
Counterplay, right? Yeah, it's SCM and SQM, right? So I'm not going to go into SQM. Like, we're going to try our best to not engage in SQM as much as possible, because SQM is going to turn our shields off. It's going to make us less combat effective, to the point of basically being non-combat effective, right?
But you're in a non-combat effective ship. I don't understand it.
When one of the devs says, hey, I had someone on my scanners and I'm not really sure if this person is going to be friendly or he's going to be hostile, but just to be safe, again, I like what he says, just to be safe, I'm going to drop down to standard control mode and see what he does, right? So in standard control mode, how do we disengage, right?
But that was in a combat ship, was it not? Was he not in like a Gladius or something like that? So he was in a scenario where he could fight back.
I think that's something.
He can't seem to wrap his head around the fact that ships don't want to fight. Yeah, like I have no desire. I would like to just run away. That needs to be an option. And if it's not an option, I have the people like Avenger are going to ruin this game for everyone. Period. PvP will ruin the game if there's not a good skill check for the PvPer to prevent the player from running, and a skill check for the player from running to be able to. They both have to be a skill check. It can't be a press a button and just leave, and it can't be a press a button and just stay. They need to both be skill checks. It needs to be a fair system where it's not overwhelmingly useful or easy in one direction or another, right? But yeah, there's much more of the presentation, but I'm going to give my thoughts throughout the entire video, and we'll get to where I'm at. But every time I'm sharing something, not only is it feedback for him on how he's communicating, but it's also you're getting my thought process throughout the thing. So I'm going to pause, I'm going to share my thought process, and I'm going to explain from my perspective what I think is important and why.
Thing that people are really missing is energy management, right? So at the present time,
which they're going to change energy management.
I have my 3 bars, right? I have my 3 bars. I have engines, I have weapons, and I have shields. Okay. So, and I can put different charge levels into each of those, right? I can put, let's say, 100% into this one, or this one, right? and I'm chasing. Let's draw a C2 here. All right, let's draw a C2 here.
He's pretty good at drawing.
Like a C2. I think that's kind of what a C2 looks like.
It's
right?
really what a C2 looks like.
Something like a C2, right? Right. I don't know. It's kind of a silhouette of a C2, right? And this C2 is running at full speed, right? Its engines, weapons, and shield systems. Okay, engines, weapons, shields. It's going to have 100% into its engines. Okay, I'm probably going to have 100% into my weapons once I'm able to start engaging the target here, right? Now, at the current time, with 317.2's flight model, at the current time, said my 3-year-old has,
So G Cubed in chat says, if you feel the threat, maybe switch to SCM to be safe, or switch to quantum and escape, is the actual quote from the video. There you go. So he like only heard what he wanted to hear, I guess.
Okay, stay with me, guys. Stay with me. Stay with me. Stay with me. Stay with me. Okay? At the current time, in 317.2/318, probably, because we're not going to get updates until 318, is as long as I stay outside of, let's say, 500 meters. Okay, so if I'm shooting at this range and I'm pew, 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 firing in, any return fire that I'm getting from the turrets, okay, is going to be largely ineffective against a counter-maneuvering light fighter.
What about in 317.5? Yeah.
Basically, as long as I don't get within that distance, which is very easy once you understand how to fly your ship, this C2 Hercules is really no threat to whatever it's attacking, right? Which is a problem, because what if you have, 5 guys all loaded up into C2?
I don't have to be a threat in this ship. You are one arrow. I'm going to tank. I'm going 100% shields. I'm going to tank all of your fire. And then I'm going into QCM mode. And I am going to quantum boost to a random location away from you. This is the example of where it is too overpowered in the other direction. Unless, like, you absolutely, if you want to take over and stop AC2, you need a Mantis. You need a Mantis. Because you shouldn't be able to, well, I guess in the rock, paper, scissors of Star Citizen ships, even if you had 2 arrows here, are you really supposed to be able to kill a C2? Probably not, right? Eventually you will, if you're able to stay within that little combat bubble and not and they aren't able to jump away, right? So it's kind of I don't know. I'm still like not really 100% on board with him. I understand that he has way more experience than me than this, but I feel like I'm coming with some pretty like logical ideas here, and that are sort of debunking how he feels about some of these scenarios as well.
Like they're basically screwed, right? The only chance they have,
they're
or the
the
only
opposite
hope
of
they
screwed.
have, is to just basically tank whatever it's getting shot at from.
And to be clear, both of these scenarios are possible in 317 and what sounds like 318. Instead of it sounds like it's going to be easier to run in 318 because I can jump to a random location and I don't need the OM marker if I'm on a planet, and I don't need a random marker if I'm in space.
But if you have a Mantis that's stopping you from warping away, like, it's over. Like
Yeah,
the fight is over. There is absolutely nothing that this multi-crew ship can do against a gang of people And they don't even have to be light fighters. I mean, you could probably kill a C2 Hercules if you had a gang of prospectors, because the prospectors have okay acceleration.
It's true.
And you've got
the way shields work.
10 Gs of acceleration on a prospector. All you would have to do is stay outside of 500 meters, and you'd be able to kill this C2 Hercules with a gang of prospectors, right? That's what we currently have. And I keep saying that because people think it's some weird thing that like, oh, what we have now, like I can disengage. It's like, no, you can't, right? In
you
this
can
new
if
system,
they have a
here's
mantis.
how it's going to shake up, right? Because combat speeds are lower, okay? Because combat speeds are lower, the opportunity for me to have high energy states and orbit my target, because remember what I said at the beginning of the video, right? The difference, the accelerational difference between, let's say, a freelancer and an arrow was like 300 meters per second. Which means I have 300 meters per second to just move anywhere I want to go. I want to move in front of him. I want to move behind him. I want to move to the right, to the left. I want to move away. I want to move forward. I have 300 meters per second, which is a crazy amount of speed to play with, to decide whether I want to engage or disengage, right? With the new system, it's
what needs to happen with the Mantis is it needs to, with the new system, I don't know what it should do, but you should need to be close. The idea of being like 20 kilometers away and being completely unable to be engaged by a multi-crew ship and its turrets, but prevent that multi-crew ship from disengaging is kind of a weird balance as well. It would be really cool to maybe have to stay within distance of like 500 meters for a period of time, and that will disengage the QCM mode for a period of time, right? So I don't know if it's for pulling people out or bringing people in. I don't know the rules as much. Is it like 2,000 meters for a Mantis? Is it 20? I'm not 100% sure. Okay, I'm hoping that Twitch chat can help out a little bit. But for me, the big thing is that it's a kind of a really nice cat and mouse. It's 2,000 meters to prevent QT. That's what I thought. Yeah, but then he said 20,000, so I kind of went with him. But yeah, he might have meant 2,000. Cool. Thanks, guys. That is I think that's a little bit of a skill check, right? But maybe it needs to be a little bit closer, and maybe it doesn't need to be as consistent. Maybe it shuts down the drive and there's a spool up period and things like that, right? So they have opportunities to make it a little bit more interesting, a little bit more engaging, and things like that.
It's going to force fights into a more if I'm running away, right? So if I'm in a C2 Hercules and I'm running away, okay, I'm full burn, I'm 100% engine power, and this is important, I'm 100% engine power, and the speeds are different, which means my accelerational difference at a top speed of a Hercules will be something like, I don't know, let's say 300.
Don't do the TTS
Hercules,
during a React
arrow
video.
Is 400, okay? Which means I only have 100 meters per second to try to start making a positional advantage on him, okay?
I'll play them again after.
Again, is going to be very difficult because if I'm at 300 and I have all my power into boost, I'm going to be able to stay at 400 meters per second for longer. Now listen, if my acceleration is going this way with my main thrusters, okay, then it forces a chase. Again, it chases, it forces turret gameplay to start returning fire, to cause fighters to start changing their flight path, which makes them cross more distance, which makes them bleed off speed, so that 100 meters per second difference turns to about a 10 meters per second difference real fast, or even into the negatives, which means I start pulling away from my target, right? It allows me to put all my shields
this makes more sense.
So it extends the amount of time that someone who's tailing me has to apply damage to me. Like, in this new system, like, you're going to be able to...
But when do I leave? When do I leave? So most of the time, like in the C2 scenario, I have cargo on my ship. I'm ready to go to my next location. None of these involve going into QT mode and leave, because that's likely what I want to do. That's disengagement. For me, disengagement is I'm out. Goodbye. I don't see you on my radar. You're nowhere near me. I'm gone. Goodbye, sir. I'm safe.
A lot longer, which means you're going to have way more time to call for help. It's going to allow turret gunners to not have to worry about trying to track stuff that's like orbiting them at super close range if they're trying to disengage. You know, it's going to allow incoming missiles to be intercepted by the turret gunners, which will help a lot too. And what you're doing...
How often do people actually come across this many fighters, basically? Not a lot now, because the game isn't good. But what happens when the things that are in that C2 are actually valuable and people want them? It's going to be happening often. And figuring out this situation is going to be one of the more paramount situations for Star Citizen and its entire existence. Because if you fuck this up, you essentially fuck the entire game up. On both ends. It needs to be fun. It needs to be skillful. It needs to be enjoyable for the PvPer. And it needs to have... It maybe isn't necessarily fun in the moment for the cargo hauler, industrial player, anybody who... the disengager. But it needs to be something that requires a thought process, a strategy, a skill, something.
Is you're basically forcing the fight. You're slowly getting farther and farther and farther and farther away until eventually you get outside of the gun range of the fighters that are chasing you, or it allows you to distance yourself enough that you can go into quantum boost mode or quantum mode outside of the effective range of their guns or missiles, and then just warp away. So I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what they do.
I hope he's right, because it does sound like a bit of a skill check.
This whole adage
it's not intuitive when I want to run to go into SCM mode. It's just not intuitive. It makes no sense. What is every player going to do? Oh shit, B for QCM mode, and or whatever button it happens to be. So we're halfway through the video. Let's see where else he goes with this.
Like, first of all, there's one big question to this that I think people need to understand is, can we go straight into quantum warp from standard control mode? So if I'm aligned, right? So let's say I'm aligned to Crusader, okay? I'm in the Hercules. I'm aligned to Crusader because I'm slowly getting my distance away from whoever's chasing me.
To answer his question is no, right?
My turrets are doing their job. You know, I've called for help. I've done whatever I can. You know, at least this way I have a chance at defending myself, right? Say quantum boost is available at any time. Okay, so then we ask the question.
Quantum boost is not available at any time. They showed it in QCM mode only. What are they talking about?
So that once we're outside of the weapon range, because again,
who said
right?
That in his
because
chat?
all of our power is in engines all the time, whereas with these light fighters,
if
these light fighters are taking shield hits from the turrets, which they will be taking hits from, because the distances will be closer, which means it's more likely that turrets will apply their damage. If the distances are closer, if
Yogi said it in the video that it's available at any time. Please find the timestamp for me, please, please, please. Because that went completely over my head, and that changes everything. Then I'm obviously staying in SCM mode.
To switch between weapons, shields, and engines, and I'm switching power between my engines, my weapons, my shields.
Yeah, please help me out while we're watching this.
It's gonna take,
and I'll bring it up.
Eventually, I'm gonna fall behind on that energy war, because if this Hercules is just 100% into its engines all the time, it's gonna win the energy battle on engines, which means it's gonna always be pulling away from me because it's always gonna be boosting. Right? Whereas with the fighters that are chasing, I will simply not be able to boost all the time because I'll be taking hits from the turrets, which means I'll have to charge my shields up, which means I have to take some time away from engines into shields and time away from engines into weapons to like produce fire. There are so many different dynamics that comes to fighting.
You think he's making a ton of assumptions here? We kind of have to. We don't have the system in our hands yet, right? So I wouldn't hold that against him here at all.
And this whole idea that you won't be able to defend yourself. It's like in the current system that we have in 3.17, you cannot defend yourself anyway. It literally cannot get any worse. It cannot get any worse for people in the current model we have. In the new model that's coming up, you very much have a fighting chance to get away, right? It's just not getting away in quantum mode, right? If somebody gets too close to you, where they can effectively lock a missile on you and fire, you have to drop the standard control tuning and play the game of chase and get away, right?
Yeah, that's so weird.
But if you stay outside of that distance from them, you can stay at high speed you can stay at high speed all day.
I just don't think that's going to happen.
That's probably what most people will race or do low flying in. I really want people to understand this because this is very important, and I'm not hammered, so I will be able to give you a good explanation as to what this new flight model will entail and why there are checks and balances and why the new system actually promotes defense over ridiculous offense like what we have right now in 3.17, right?
I think it certainly makes turrets more powerful.
The tuning is one thing. Like the specific numbers will change, right? So like the delta numbers and the overall top speeds for some ships and the amount of time that a ship can boost, that's all relative to tuning. So you must differentiate between flight tuning and a flight model, which is a fundamental shift in mechanics. A flight model change is the addition of quantum control mode, right? So that's why I had concerns about this. In a new system, I would be easier for someone to run away from you. So you're concerned it might be too easy to run away.
What?
See, that's funny, Duke, because
Maybe.
Most people, at least some of the comments in my most recent video, most people are really scared that it's going to be too hard to run away. Now, and also, I will say this. That when I talk about in the previous video, when I talked about at some point you're going to have to fight, I think some people took that the wrong way. I am not trying to tell people that, you know, like I'm not trying to come at it from like this high and mighty PvP position, like ha ha ha, like all you.
He's fighting a Scorpius who's facing him. I'm confused.
People that aren't interested in PvP, and now you're forced to play my game. Assuming that's even my game to begin with, which is not true. That's just simply a mischaracterization of what I said, right? And it's just simply wrong. Okay. The point I was trying to make is, you will have to drop down to standard control mode and force the disengage from there instead of forcing the disengage from the system that we have now, and also. Again, like I've said before, the system we have now does not, you cannot get away. You cannot get away. A caterpillar cannot outrun anything because boost doesn't let you go over your top SEM speed, right?
Mm-hmm.
So proper power management
but
is,
I can just
gonna
press
be really
B and
important
leave.
Here. And it's going to lead to people that
With
are
my
better with
shields
their
up.
power management. And also, people need to understand this too.
This guy
if
doesn't
the
want to
multi-crew ship
leave.
has a good crew.
He wants to fight.
It's going to be able to reroute power and all that stuff. You're going to be able to get away from the fighters. Like truly, you will be able to get away.
Yeah, never mind. He says it's available anytime. Then says QCM mode. QCM allows you to quantum boost. So I guess he misspoke, then corrected it. He's probably just speaking in QCM mode. It is available at any time.
We would be honored,
you know, at least in this system,
join us.
You have a chance. In the one we have right now, man, like you're toast. Like you're absolute toast. Said the new system just seems like it takes more coordination to fight/escape.
It was Ninetales
But
lockdown.
Lizzie,
Oh yeah, then he can't run away because he can't QT. Of course
in this
not.
system, you can escape. That's
He's
the difference. In
just
the new
ignoring
system,
the fact that you can QT at any time in 317. I don't understand why.
actually can get away, whereas with the current system we have, you simply cannot get away, no matter how quote-unquote good you are. And on top of that, what's even worse is that you can't get away and you can't take a fight. So not only can you not get away, but you also can't win fights in multi-crew ships as it stands right now in 317. Okay? In the new system, you can get away and you can take a fight, but it requires you to drop down into standard control mode and get into that metric, right? People need to have this mind shift, like this mindset shift of quantum control mode is meant for crossing distances and getting to your locations. But the game will play in these lower speeds because that's where all the mechanics come in.
He might be right there.
Right now, I think the issue is too easy to disengage and re-engage in a fight. The flight model seems it will make so much... Okay, so Captain Ando, that is because it's too easy to engage and disengage relative to fighters themselves rather than fighters to multi-crew ships, right? Fighters to multi-crew ships, there's no question, you cannot run away. Fighters to fighters, like disengaging is much, much easier. And it leads to fights taking a lot longer.
Yeah.
And it does lead to like a really high skill ceiling to some degree, but it also makes for gameplay that I wouldn't consider to be the best that Star Citizen could possibly become.
True, for sure.
If Pyro came out with the current flight control system that we have,
It would be dog shit.
nobody would survive.
Yeah.
Not one. Like, they would all die. The only people that wouldn't die...
In his mind, people that aren't prepared, i.e. without a mantis, aren't a threat, so he's only talking about with a mantis. What I'm saying is that they will be, is what it feels like. With or without a mantis could possibly be a threat. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think he's ever backed down from a fight, so I don't know if he's ever like really had to get away because there's some cargo on his ship that he wants to keep, right? Like I just don't know. I'm in a weird spot with the current way that he's labeling things and thinking about them versus the way I am, and I do think it just comes down to we're going to need to get these in our hands. And I mean, it's something that I'm going to practice. I'm probably going to practice disengaging more than I would practice my engaging.
Would be people with escorts. Now,
I hope cargo
I'm
insurance
trying to
is not
argue
a thing.
For options without the need for escorts.
Yes,
which
and
I personally think, again, I'm speaking for combat here, is a bit silly. If you're going to a very dangerous area of space, if you're not going to bring an escort...
It's different if you're going to a very dangerous area of space. Like if you're going to Pyro and not bringing people because you absolutely expect to fight there, like I get it. But if you're just kind of floating around Stanton, it's not a good experience to recommend people a fighter escort. It's just silly.
For God's sake, at the very least.
I think this is the best comment so far. Imagine explaining this shit to a brand new player. Exactly. It's fucking stupid.
Bring a scout. Like, bring a scout. Please, for the love of God, bring a scout. Because at the very least, the scout can go ahead and it can go like, oh, wow, don't come here because there's like a gang of fighters and this and that and whatever.
And that's the problem with this game.
You can find another path to your objective.
Is that this conversation
But
even exists?
flying blind with a freighter into lawless areas of space, like...
Yeah, you're an idiot if
What?
you're doing that. Yeah, I totally agree.
Like, come on. I just, I just don't get it. That's just a failure in understanding threat assessment.
I mean, I would like to solo mine on a moon somewhere in Pyro, like kind of hidden, because its base is so big. But in order to get back through the jump point, that would be idiotic to not bring somebody with me.
I'm a bit confused by what you're saying about not being able to escape now. In the current system, you can get away in larger ships. They have large enough shields to quantum away before your shields get taken.
Let's see what he says to this comment. Okay.
That's Hammer. Let me explain something. That's a great question. And
oh, and Hammer's here in chat right now.
What I'm going to show you here.
Let's see what he says to this, because this is where my thought process is.
Here's arrow number 1 and arrow number 2. Okay.
All right, so 2 arrows versus...
The group is probably not going to fly by themselves. Okay, here's the Mantis.
Okay, why are we assuming... right away, we're assuming pirate group, organized group. How many organized pirate groups are there in Star Citizen? I can think of like 2. The scenarios that I have come across... I'm a streamer. Surprise, surprise. The scenarios that I've come across are more... one douchebag with the most overpowered combination of weapons that one-shots everything, right? But this is the I'm up against a Mongrel Squad scenario, which is a scenario that is going to happen more often as the game grows and as the game improves. Okay, so this is a scenario that we still need to absolutely think about, because as things gain value for players, both PvP players and regular players, things like, I don't know, fuel, components, whatever you may be cargo hauling, right? As the need for those becomes more clear for everyone, and everyone isn't just jumping in game, pulling out their ships with no consequences and nothing. The actual need for money, or the need for cargo that you're stealing, or the need for certain minerals to repair your ships or fuel your ships, things like that, are, as that becomes more and more relevant, these situations are going to become more and more prevalent. So,
yeah, something like that, right?
I accept this as a scenario.
So, tell me,
but not
right now,
the current
how you
scenario.
Intend to get away from 2 light fighters and a Mantis, which have you interdicted?
You can't. Yeah, I mean, he's totally right.
The question is you don't.
Yeah,
you cannot. You can't, right? So, yes, you can get away from the hyper casuals that basically see somebody and go like, ha, there they are, bang, 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 and shoot at them for a little bit, and then they just warp off. You're still going to be able to do that with the new system. If someone is there and they're like, oh, there's a freelancer here, and they shoot at you a little bit, just stay in standard control mode and just fly off. Like, fly away and turn your quantum drive on, because that arrow has nothing to stop you from warping. Just get away from them and then warp off. Just put
get
all
away.
power to your boost, get some distance, boost away, and it might take a little bit longer for you to get away from them, but you'll get away. How are you going to get away from an interdictor? It's just, you're not. You know what I mean? And the problem is, once these fighters engage you, there's nothing you can do to win that battle. Do you really think, and this is, I'm gonna ask this question for you guys, right? Do you really think that when piracy becomes lucrative, so when I board and steal the cargo of a $20 million, like a 20 million REAs, AUEC, whatever, loaded freighter that's totally undefended, if I board that ship and steal 20 million credits in 20 minutes, you don't think people are going to make sure that they have a Mantis the next time? Or that, do you know what I mean? And so, like, if we go into piracy with the new system, like, all these guys that are shipping stuff from point to point, it's going to be like piranhas in the water.
Yeah.
People are going to start pirating, and it's going to be so bad, so fast, because freighters and other ships of the like will not be able to get away with the current system. So, yes, you can disengage quickly at the present time in 17.2 from people who are unprepared, undertrained, and undermotivated to get you. But when you introduce piracy and it starts becoming very lucrative for pirates to do piracy, they are going to be very trained. They're going to make a lot of money, so they're going to be very motivated to do it. And they're also going to be very skilled at what they're doing. And that's who are the people that you have to protect yourself from. That's why I always advocate for people to understand the fundamental pillars of flight so that they have a choice and a chance to get away, right? Protecting yourself from the casuals, anybody can do that. That's not what I'm trying to do here. I'm trying to protect you guys for when you have a $20 million loaded Hull C or Hull A or Crusader Hercules, and you want to get that $20 million to your location so that you can make $10 million. I want that to be the case. But in order for that to happen, you must be trained. You must know your threats. You must know how to defend yourself, and you must know how to get away, right? This attitude of like, well, I should just be able to get away whenever I feel like it. It's like, okay.
That's a terrible
Let me know
attitude.
how far it gets you.
Yeah.
Because that's not a world in a game where someone like Chris Roberts is gonna. It's not gonna happen.
The option needs to be there.
You know, like I genuinely want the best for Star Citizen. I want the best, and
I'm not gonna lie though. The option needs to be there, but I don't like his solution for that option. Maybe I don't know what the best solution is, but I don't like the idea of going into SCM mode because he still has not brought up the fact that the combat pilot can then go into QCM mode to catch up and engage back with you. And it's a never-ending cat and mouse where I can never leave.
Again, right? People pigeonhole me, man. They put events.
Fighting is the only option, period. It cannot be. It cannot be. It absolutely cannot be. That is dead game. Game dead today if that's how it is. Dead game. Because I would say 80% of the player base that is playing Star Citizen consistently now has no desire to be a part of this. To take part in combat has no desire. And if the way to disengage is this complicated and I need to be trained by fucking Avenger 1 to deal with one or two other combat ships, it's just absolutely insane to me. And then we're already saying things like security zones and stay out of pyro and all the things that are not options in the Chris Roberts game. Do you? I know you've done your research, but go ahead and take a look.
Say, this guy only wants everyone to,
you are able to fight and shoot like, in any location
that's not
in
what
Star
I'm talking
Citizen.
About.
There's just
I
consequences.
Want a healthy game where we have options.
And right now, those consequences are not strong
where
at all.
We have tactical opportunities to disengage. That we have checks and balances between player skill and ship choice / selection / the overall tactical battle space. And right now, in 3.17.2, the tactical battle space comes down to basically 3 ships: the Blade, the Cartual, and the Mantis. Those are the only 3 ships you need. I'm not kidding.
It seems like you want an easy game, but it won't be. I think you came late to the conversation.
Only 3 ships you need.
I think you came very late to this conversation.
Are the Blade for DPS and kill power, the Cartual because nothing gets away from the Cartual, and the Mantis so that if it does try to get away, it can't warp out. If you have those 3 ships, every other ship in the game is obsolete. Every ship is obsolete. Hornets, all the fighters, all the vanguards, everything, all obsolete, right? The 3 horsemen of the apocalypse. Yeah. I mean, if you wanted to rule the world in Star Citizen, all you do is fly Cartuals so people couldn't run away, Blades to fight, and mantises to make sure that they couldn't warp out. And then you could basically transfer your cargo with impunity as long as you had an escort, because any other teams that were unescorted would just get smoked. And anything else in terms of choice for combat, like you want to bring an arrow, you want to bring a gladius, like any other choice is just a downgrade from those 3 ships I mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that was one hell of a start to the stream, guys. I think we have discussed in detail the ideas and the opportunities when it comes to disengaging with the new system versus the current system that we have. Is everybody on the same page now?
No.
Are there any questions when
Yes.
it comes to understanding the mechanical nature of how to disengage with the new system versus the old system? Are there still any questions? Is it unclear? Did I do a good job explaining it?
I think you
Or
did a
should
good
I
job of
find
explaining the
another way to
scenarios.
explain it so that you guys kind of have a better view at it. Because again, like I've said before, this whole idea
I think you did a good job of explaining the scenarios that he provided. But
that
I think there's more to
Avenger,
it.
You know, I don't want to force myself into fights and this and that. I hear you, and I 100% agree with you. But that is currently what we have in 17.1, and also most
It's not.
likely 3.18. You cannot
17.1, I
disengage
press B
from
and I
any
leave.
kind of coordinated group of PvPers at the current time. You simply cannot get away, right? And if they
Most
bring
groups
mantises
aren't
and all that
coordinated.
Stuff, like
That's the thing.
F and chat, boys, right?
But he's
At
right
least
about
with this new
coordinated
system,
groups. You're just
you have
fucked.
an opportunity to defend yourself, right? It's just not going to be at standard quantum mode. It's not. It's going to be in standard control mode, not standard quantum mode. Quantum mode is meant for traveling distances. If there is any threat to your safety, drop down to standard control mode and engage in that.
No, he
form.
talked about groups that
But
are
at the
not
very
organized.
least, put all your power to your engines.
That it's easy to get
and
away from them.
beeline it away from whoever's chasing you as quick as possible, and get your turrets there and put pressure on them to push them away, and disengage your opponent. You cannot do that.
I already heard you, Zarek,
with
and
317.
you're definitely
They will simply
the
get
exception.
up on top of you. They'll rotate around you.
Anecdotal
they'll be just
evidence
outside your
isn't
range, and there won't
facts.
be a damn thing you can do about it. And you could have 5, 10, 50 gunners. You could have a fully manned hammerhead with 10 more guns than it normally has, and you'd still lose to 2 arrows, or 2 gladius, or 2 blades, or 2 auroras, or 2 mustangs, or 2 M50s, or 2 anything. Because
talking about in the current
eventually-
game, right?
Eventually, they'll wear you down and kill you, right? And you won't be able to get away from the mantis because it's got you at 20k.
In 318,
with a warp
it's
scram.
looking like the answer
your
to
only
that's going to be
option
no,
is to
but yeah.
Alt F4 or wave the white flag and be like, all right, I just simply, you don't have a ship that can fight that right now. But with the new system, you have a chance, right? And this whole adage of people using trading ships like caterpillars, all that stuff, right? Please, for the love of God, don't get upset when you go to Pyro without a scout, without any training, and this like naivete of like, I'm just gonna go into this rainbow and sunny world where everyone's gonna love each other and we're all gonna fly around Pyro and look at all the cool sights. Like, you will die, and they will steal your stuff, and then you will come back after taking your screenshots, and they will kill you again,
Yep.
and again,
Yep.
and again, and they'll put you on forum posts and they'll make fun of you and they'll be like, look at this guy, he's salty because we killed him. That's what will happen. And I don't want to see people leave the game because they're too naive or they're too stubborn to understand the threats and understand also that there are options for you to disengage. There are options for you to fight back. There are options for you to stay safe. But it doesn't include just blindly going into a dangerous area with no scout, no escort, or
But that's not what we're talking about.
knowledge or
That's
understanding
literally not what we're talking about.
of how to
It's-
disengage properly.
Yeah.
So
I don't know. It's not about blindly
Rant
going
over.
into an area. It's not about any of that. Yeah, it's about a situation where space is big. There's no way that you should be bringing like escorts and 20 people with you just to go mining out there in what's that? What did you say? A solo mining ship? A solo cargo hauling ship? Oh, what's that? Sometimes players are going to play by themselves, and it like there's situations where there should just be the ability for there to be a skill check on both sides. It cannot be easy for either side. And right now, I think it's a little bit too easy for one side over the other. Something like there are, if you take other RPGs, like obviously Star Citizen is not an RPG, but there's skills you can use to root a player for a few seconds to allow you to run away, things like that, right? So you could start bringing in certain countermeasures. You could start bringing in just other aspects that maybe ships that are not combat focused are able to equip, right? Things that can, I don't know, maybe take the arrow down and slow them down a little bit, or shut down their capacitor pool by a percentage. There's things that we can do to give options to allow you to get away that are still a skill-based thing, but not a press B and QT away that we have now, which is like his conversation of not being able to disengage. I literally press B, find an OM, and I'm gone, right? And I will keep QTing until I QT to a place where I can stop in between, and then you'll never find me again unless you have the bounty marker on me. So, yeah, I'm just not with this. And I think that that's a great opportunity for an Answer the Call for next week, is like bring Avenger 1 and maybe another combat focused person and just have that conversation. But assuming the Mantis thing is a fair assumption the moment Star Citizen becomes a game. Pirates, that is a thing you bring with you. When you get pirated, that is the thing you're going to see, right? So I agree with that assumption. I just don't think that that's every engagement and disengagement scenario that exists. It's not always piracy, right? So there's more to it than that, and I think there's more conversations to be had, and I think the end of his video was the key there. Do you have any more questions? Do you have any more things? I have a lot more questions. I have a lot more scenarios. I have a lot more things that I would love to see answered, and things like that. Not necessarily from Avenger 1, probably more likely from a Yogi or somebody who actually works there, right? To see where their thought process is on the short term, midterm, long term for these scenarios. But peaceful players just cannot always. And I don't want to use the word peaceful, but players who are just out there trying to make a buck do have to go to the risk and reward areas. But the idea of slipping away needs to be a thing. Needs to be a thing. It cannot be an easy thing. I've always said this. And that's the important thing here, is the idea of it needs to be a skill check. And it probably should be a more difficult skill check on the minor cargo hauler side than it is on the like the combat engager side, right? They have missiles, they have all sorts of tools at their disposal because that's what they do. So that's what I feel like is missing here. But yeah, so we'll have to see. I think it's a good opportunity maybe to try and get Avenger on the podcast, maybe some of the other content creators in the space. And I don't think I'll be able to get a dev on, but I'll certainly try. That's my thoughts on that video. It's an hour-long video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. And we'll have to see.